over that again. TransCanada's back in South Dakota news. Now you're in office. What potentially can be done, and what can you think you can do?
Well, I think one of the things is making sure people are organized around the opposition, and making sure that we're united as communities, and understanding that we also have we also have some political power, and with various issues coming up, in 2014, I think that's a really great time to think about, well, what are going to be the not only the economic ramifications, but also the political ramifications of some of this kind of stuff, and saying that, well, who is going to be in our corner when we ask about these issues, but also who is going to help us provide smart job growth. And and I think that's one of the fallacies of this Keystone pipeline, is that they say that they're going to bring a lot of jobs and resources and long-term jobs, but the truth is that these jobs are probably not going to last more than 3 months, and maybe 6 months in some cases. But that is that smart job growth? No, not really. Especially when we have one of the most abundant resources of energy, wind, in our community, in our region. And especially going along the pipeline corridor, that's one of the most wind-rich areas in this world. And so, not being able to take advantage of that, but being able to say, well, we want this non-renewable energy to come in, and just say that we want we're willing to kind of exchange this for that, and not look at the long term and not be smart about that. I don't think it's very smart job growth at all. So that's one of the I think biggest fallacies of this whole project is ensuring that we need to be smart about this. We need to figure out how do we start putting down wind energy projects. How do we take advantage of some of the legal implementation, the legal legalities of wind energy, and how does that trump clean energy development in terms of trying to provide easements, for those communities, and also looking at how are we smart about leveraging our power for next year, and especially when it comes to elections. So I think that's one thing that we need to be cognizant of, and just making sure that for me personally, what I can do is also help organize, state legislators, especially native state legislators, progressive state legislators, and joining in the opposition and saying that we're willing to work together as communities, as you've seen in this conference. We have conferences, Cowboy Indian Alliance working together. We also have allies in other communities and other states across this nation. And it's like, how do we tap into that? How do we start building it across coalitions? And, really leveraging this power, saying that, well, for every person that supports it, there's somebody that doesn't support it. And they understand that. They understand what we're talking about. But how do we connect with them in different states and get them to take action, the appropriate action in their own communities? How do we work with state senators and state representatives in Massachusetts, where Senator John Kerry's from, and just making sure that we do some of this kind of stuff. So,
fun question, or fun. So now that you've been voted into office, and now people are calling you to action, like it just happened. How does it feel, and what's your general feeling? And pitfalls and negatives and positives to now they're asking you to be accountable.
Well, I think one of the main things is I ran to do stuff. That's the main thing, and I think people need to remember that I ran to do things and to help where I can and to help in the best way that I can, and because everybody has a role in the community, and I think that's something that we all need to kind of understand, that is that what is our roles in our communities, but also how can we take action in those roles, and figuring out, where do we leverage the most of our resources, and how do we build the most of our capital in some of those roles. So understanding that, I think, is really the key to being accountable to our communities, and understanding that, we're important, at the political level, we're important at the grassroots level, we're important at all these levels, but how do we make the most of that capital, it's like, so, and making sure that, we're always communicating across all those avenues as well, and ensuring that people are always open. I'm on Facebook. People can always contact me there. I have a phone, it's like, and I always give my card out, so my cell phone number is on there, so people can directly ask me. But I think, being supporting tribes and understanding that, how can we guide them across the appropriate political channels to help them kind of take action on this. I think that's one example of doing so, like some of my comments that I provided earlier. So.
One last question would be, it's been said during this whole conference that many of the conference goers are disappointed that the state didn't officially send a representative. The state Dugard himself didn't show up. His aide didn't show up. The DSS aides had said they were busy. So how does it feel to be the only state official to be at this conference?
Well, like I said, like the Native vote elected me, and I'm always going to be accountable to our Native communities. And that's something, if this is an issue that they really want to take up, I'm more than happy to support it. And, and I'm not aligned with any one particular issue, and other than, what the constituency wanted, and understanding that the Native voice needs to be heard, because it hasn't been represented probably in the last, since statehood, other than through a couple of our state legislators who were elected, and understanding that they need to, understanding that, we need to wield our political power, and saying that, if we don't elect people who represent our interests, then we need to think about finding different candidates and finding different resources and finding different people to run these offices. And ultimately, I have, if I run for re-election again, I'll have only one term left. So it's like, who's going to come after me? And that's the main thing, is to think about who's coming after us in these roles. So.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.